Freedom! It is plastered on every second coach's marketing material, promising it to you as if it can come in a 5-step transformation or a quick challenge that you don't even have to log on for, something like that. We speak the word as if it is oxygen. We're told we can have it if we just do this. We fight wars in its name, or are told to fight wars by authorities who believe they have said powers. And we do spend lifetimes chasing it. Yet, how many of us ever stop to ask, what is freedom really? Because we say that we are free because we choose our own breakfast, we choose our own job, we choose when we get to go on holiday or not, and we think that we choose our partner. And you say that you are free because you can just quit any time taking on, is it Mel Robbins? Let them energy. And you can be the rebel and just stick your middle finger up to society, or you can doom scroll all you want. But what if all of that was only another layer of a cage? It's just bigger, and it's got more wallpaper, or not more wallpaper, more space for all your furniture. So tonight we are not here to celebrate and definitely not pedestalize freedom. We're here to hold its funeral for what the world has constructed it to be, to bury the shallow promises that it promises, and to grieve the false idol of what freedom is, and to really examine deeper questions of what does it mean to live bound and still discover something deeper than freedom. Daniel, are you free?
How do I even begin to answer a question like that? It's like, what is love? What is freedom really? Like, where do you begin to answer a question like that? I mean, yes, I chose my breakfast, but it's the same breakfast I always eat. So am I free? I don't know. Cue existential crisis. How about you? Are you free?
This is, I was thinking about it this morning, and I think I did post something along these lines today where I thought that I was free because it's the Aquarius in me that says I'll do whatever I want, but I was only doing whatever I want in a micro cage built by others. So how free was I really when I didn't even have awareness, and I still do not have full awareness of the multidimensionality?
The sun in Aquarius right there. But then again, are you free not to create the change that Aquarius would create?
Well, there's the paradox. The waters that you swim in. Food is a really interesting one for both of us because, this is the one way that we can examine, and we invite you to examine the everyday illusion of freedom that, we think we can eat whatever we want because you go to a restaurant, you get handed a menu and you pick. But that is already picking something within a construct of eating.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved out with you, and I think we spoke about this on a previous episode, like all of a sudden I had all of these choices.
It was even before that.
Yeah. And it was just perplexing. And we have both chosen to be you first, and I came later into the piece, but to be vegan from fundamentally an ethical perspective. And
there'll be an episode on that one.
There will absolutely be an episode on that one. And that was something very challenging for you in your world. I haven't had the abrasion so much from the external world. A little bit. It is sort of the last hill that my parents will die on when it comes to, things they will sacrifice in order to let me go kind of thing.
And in this sense, your parents are more of like the average person.
Very much so. It's like we eat meat, and everything else that is not meat is not food. So it's a construct as well where the flesh of others is food, and I need to have that in order to survive. So then even, before this, I was also always under the illusion that when I go to a restaurant, I'll eat whatever I want. But that really wasn't the case, because where did my programming of food come from? And this extends into clothes. I always thought that, I'm dressed successfully. But then when I started the shadow work, it was brought to my attention abruptly that I pretty much had a man's wardrobe. So how much of what I thought I was choosing to wear, which was I was being told to power dress because this is how you make it in the world, you become a man.
Yeah, you're running off though. I want to go back to food. You go to the restaurant and it's like, do you choose vegan option number 1 or vegan option number 2? Are you free to choose? What if there's one vegan option only? Well, you're free not to have to think about what you want to choose.
Even alcohol, how many people socially drink, they're not even aware of what they're doing. It's not automatically, but it's programmed into them that I need a drink with dinner to wind down to this because I can't enjoy this food without a $17 glass of wine.
It takes the edge off.
Does it?
Yeah, for the rising cost, for others, for the rising cost of living,
yes.
and how much their dinner's costing them with the wine. And
so these are very simple things that you just go about your day and you just eat X. But have you questioned why you eat it, where it comes from, who told you to eat it, how many generations before you have decided to eat it, when did they decide to eat it? And this is when you're on the path, and being conscious really does put you in its own category, because we now found ourselves to be the vegan people who don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't go out to bars, we don't party, we don't do so many things that society just deems as normal. Then it's like, well, what do you do? And that also goes to, the paradigm.
We tell everyone that we're vegan is what we do.
Yeah.
That's what the stereotype is.
Yes.
Because we're free to do that.
We are. Even entertainment. I mean, the things that I used to enjoy are things that I do not resonate with at all.
Any examples?
Well, it was like going out to restaurants is one of those things. Like, okay, I do enjoy it, but then it used to be like the highlight of the week. It was the escape. It was the necessary thing to do. But now it's
also a symptom of your old life as well. Just a reason to get out of the house.
Yeah, and now I do enjoy. I love going out with you, but it's not something that we have to do, or it's the only way or the only place to go out. Whereas another example is, I never appreciated going to nature because you can't take nature to the bank because that's not what the bros say. So it's pointless. It's useless. Versus now, it's a reprieve.
Well, it's the earth. It's the mother. It's the feminine that provides for all of us as well. And, I know we're speaking about freedom here as well, but even the freedom to get lost within the societal games of the hustle culture and climbing the corporate ladder and adhering to these masculine structures and participating in the denigration of the feminine, in this case Mother Earth. That's
definitely another podcast. So are these choices really yours from the things that you eat, even when you go to sleep? Like we asked under QHHT, when should I be waking up? When should you be waking up? Because the industrialization or the standardization of the body clock has you waking up at 7 to get to start commuting at 8 so you can be fully functional at 9. But
with a double shot coffee.
Exactly. That you have to, the prices keep on going up for, and you don't even know if you enjoy it anymore. So there's so much standardization that comes, and so much pre-programming from culture, family, advertising, algorithms. How much of our attention is just leaked and split out into so many directions that, again, we think that we're choosing, but how do we even know what we like outside of all of the choices? How, if you were just thrust into a new dimension or a new country, how much would you actually love the things that you used to love versus you love it because it's proximity?
Well, it's also like the freedom to get lost in familiarity. And a lot of people's lives have, I've seen it a lot with like what suburbia does, and especially with some of my work that I've done, and just being around the average person who they set themselves up in their certain lifestyle, and then they sort of they get comfortable with it, and they forget the concept of the freedom to change, the freedom to live differently. They've taken on especially in this day and age, an enormous mortgage, and they've chosen their town and their neighbors and everything, and by the time you've done all that, you might think you're free because now you've got your own place, but really you've lost so much freedom by getting entrenched in a bunch of other systems.
Well, even geography, like how do people, won't spend too much time on this because we want to continue on to more freedom packaged by the world, but how people think, well, my bank allows me to have, I don't know, $850,000 mortgage. So therefore, you put in your criteria and you can only live out in some paddock. But how are they examining whether that's actually what they want? Because if they look at, let's say, astrocartography, why should you settle down in Melbourne? Why shouldn't you live, I know your best life would be in a combination of things, but maybe your sun sign or Venus. So astrocartography, can you give a quick explanation?
There's a very specific subset of astrology work.
I love it.
It's locational astrology in essence, using a birth chart to essentially determine how the planets actually factor into the geographic location of where your birth planets actually play out. And this is a new branch of astrology that only really came out around the 1970s. But doing relocational astrology has been enormous for Eleanor, which is why she brought it up seemingly out of the blue.
It told me what I always felt and knew. But for example, even with geography and where you choose to live, even a relationship, you can get the combination or the chart of the relationship and find out in combination where is the best place for you to live. But we won't stay on that because that could go down many different locations. So even if you just go on LinkedIn for 5 minutes, very quickly you'll find freedom packaged as financial freedom. 10 steps, the quickest way to 100K, something, just have financial freedom.
Have you done any of those courses?
I have done, I have dabbled in it, and they are very quick band-aid fixes that are all just about bro marketing, and they do not address any deeper parts of what finances are, what freedom is. It just presumes that you have all the cash flow in the world, then you live your happiest life ever.
So what if you didn't have cash flow and you attended an event like that?
Well, why would someone go to a room like they wouldn't even allow themselves
they were free
to
go to there.
Yeah, they were free to go to there. So even the concept of financial freedom, it still tethers you to an economy. You are still playing in a construct of economy. Yeah,
like what I was saying before with buying a house. You have to buy it in a country because we're playing the game of nation states. You have to build it in a city, then in a suburb, or even urban, or even rural, and then you have to choose the area, whether it's close to the shops, close to the train station, or far away, and then your neighbors as well. And then that itself is its own economy. And so people love to hold on to the concept of what they think freedom is, while simultaneously seeming to overlook or forget the fact that there's always losses of freedoms and gains of freedoms at the same time in everything that we do.
Well, even just how social media, like the likes of LinkedIn and all the bros out there, have just flattened freedom and just equated it to financial. And that's it. Once you're financially free of the corporate cage, now you're free. End of story, end of game. You've won.
Yeah, I think back to The Big Short. Have you seen? You've seen it?
You told me to watch that. That's confronting.
Yeah,
if you really pay attention.
I can't recall the exact scene, but it's very much one of I think it was Brad Pitt's character. You know, he played the game, he climbed up, he made all his money, and he just got out. But even though he got out and was financially free, he still carried the burden of knowing how corrupt and broken the very financial system that he participated in really was, and that wore on his conscience.
What's that money series that you told me to watch at the start?
The Hidden Secrets of Money by Mike Maloney.
That's it.
Yeah, it's on YouTube now. I think it's up to 10 episodes. But that was just so foundational when it comes to the money element and even understanding what money is. And we'll need to do an episode on that one too, because
we will.
Most people have no idea what the concept of money or currency in today's age really is. And that type of ignorance creates the lack of freedom to even understand how the energy of money even moves.
And this then builds up into entrepreneurial freedom, which is another set of chains wrapped up in 24/7 availability, hustle culture, and simply achieving more and doing more.
Well, when you're free to build anything that you want, you lose the freedom to choose it on your own schedule and And to do it for, your own audience, you have to sell yourself essentially back out to the world, because what sort of debts are you taking on, and who do you have to appeal to basically get ahead here, especially with the risky nature of entrepreneurship.
And I took that personally. I was just writing this part in my upcoming book, and it was how, sure, I thought I was free. Now I'm free. No one's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to decide when I'm going to wake up and where I'm going to work from, and I'm going to work remotely, and all of these dreams that Instagram sells you. But the missing piece was that the inner machinery was still running on the exact same program. It's just I got a bigger cage, and I put up some new wallpaper. I got new furniture, and I got a desk, and I plugged myself in, and I started performing for the circus, and that was freedom.
And how did that work out?
It collapsed.
Right.
Yeah, it was built on sand.
But my freedom.
It was built on sand. The house was on fire most of the time, but I wasn't paying attention.
Should have got larger glasses of water to pour it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I should have I needed to have bro marketed harder, like everyone told me to do at the time. But even entrepreneurship, it has its beauty. It is a very tough game. Still is just a bigger cage. And it comes under the illusion or the guise of...
Can I say, you say cage, but I feel a better word for this, playing video games in my past, is the concept of the sandbox. When you want to create an open world game, it feels open, it feels endless, but really it's a sandbox. And I think cage isn't always an accurate way to put it, because there are, think of chickens, for example, and are they caged or are they free range? They're both their own type of cage. And so I think sandbox is really a better word to use to really show and illustrate the concept that even though we think we have freedom, there is invisible walls that hold and bind us as well. I just think that's an important distinction to put in.
Of course. And what this also points in the direction of is that freedom as we are sold is not just socially engineered, but it's constantly running away from something. It's freedom from corporate. Then it's freedom from entrepreneurship by going to a retreat. And then it's freedom from the family. And then it's freedom from the wife and from the husband and from the kids. But it's never freedom as a permanent state of being. So
this is like the razors, the double-edged sword of Saturn. We were speaking about astrology before, and the concept of Saturn is one of limitation and hardship and, working with less, so to speak. And so that very much feels like having less freedom. But at the same time, that also teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to work efficiently. It teaches you, especially with entrepreneurship, if you haven't got yourself put together, you're going to feel the effects of that very strongly. Where we think of something that gives you freedom, like Jupiter, for example, big and expansive Jupiter giving us what we need. At the same time, it can also give us so much that it makes us complacent. So even understanding that, finding the balance when we're constructing the concept of freedom around anything that we want, whether we're typically, as you mentioned, with running away from, at the same time, there's also the freedom to run to that thing as well and embrace what it is. Even if it's, not what we want, there are very powerful lessons we can learn in that about what it means to be free within an unfree dynamic.
We've been speaking a bit in paradox, and paradox is something you introduced me to, and you live in these waters, and is, I don't want to say central to being on the path or understanding things, but can you explain the power of paradox to those that may not be able to have such flexibility in their mind as you have?
It goes back to our channeled QHHT episode, which I need to go back to listen to again because I still remember saying it all. And I'm like, this is so obvious. Why would anyone see the value in it? And when I listened back to it the first time when I was doing the editing, I'm like, this isn't me. And there was something really powerful about that, because the big theme about it itself was paradoxical. And so when I think of the power of paradox, it's how do we actually understand greater and greater truths? How do we transcend the idea of the cage or the sandbox in its totality? Because ultimately everything, the further back we push the walls, visible or invisible, the larger the less we become more about our individual selves and the more worldly and then cosmic we actually get in its concept, right up until the absolute. And that's where anyone who's serious about the path, I feel, should deeply have an understanding of the concept of paradox, in which it's where the duality of something collapses. Humor is a very good example of that, where two things contradict and it creates a short circuit in your brain, and that naturally triggers laughter because you know the absurdity that it actually can't be true. But this also works in the way, I think of like Alan Watts talking to, the cosmic joke. And then in encountering the absolute, all you can do is laugh because you realize that reality itself it's just a game. And it's a game that reality plays with itself. And you are reality playing its own game. And that's the paradox, that it's so obvious, but it's so impossible at the same time, that all you can do is laugh. This is why I believe it might have been Lao Tzu. Don't quote me on the top of my head of that one, but he said, "Those who know don't speak, and those who speak do not know." And it gets to the idea of understanding that paradox can't be understood. It can only be just connected with and just known for what it is. And so I can just sort of go in loops here, because it's one that you can never really touch the center of, sort of like freedom.
Then how do people sit with the concepts of freedom versus security? Because entrepreneurial doctrines will tell you that you are most secure when you are working for yourself versus when you're working for someone else. But if someone is at the bottom rung of survival, they just need to get to the next day. But then also we want to be free, but yeah, we do want to belong. Community is a big part. So there's all of these polarities when it comes to freedom that can be conflicting. How do you explain these?
Well, I mean, I'd speak to freedom having some sort of root in choice. This goes back to the analogy of the Matrix, the game, are we free or are we not free? And, even though they weren't free in the Matrix, those who had the opportunity to leave ultimately could. And that was central at the end of the first movie, and, spoiler warning, at the end of the trilogy as well. Not speaking to Resurrections, that's its its own write-off of a story. But it's its own nested dynamic as well. Like, freedom is an element that's playing out, just as love is, just as security is. And it's how we actually resonate with it individually as well. Because, you'll hear pro-choice women, probably even men, speaking to the idea of my body, my choice. And really, what is the essence of that? It's the freedom to choose what they do with their own body. Now, I don't want to make it political as to pro-choice, but it's a very charged argument that's rooted in freedom through choice. And so I think with security, it's sort of interesting because it's actually rooted in removing. It's the choice to choose that then removes the freedom at the same time. Again, it goes back to this sort of paradox if you think about it. But if they don't do that work, if they don't find security, then really there's often even less choice. And that might be, homelessness or unemployment. Like, it can get into some really bad situations that, you might be free. I think of Fight Club, for example. And Brad Pitt said the line, "Only once we lose everything are we free to do anything." And I thought that was really powerful as well, because it shows that rock bottom is also its own place of freedom as well. It's sort of, I fear no man except the man with nothing to lose, because they're so free that they've got nothing holding them in security. There's a way you can sort of control and guide and direct people. Once you've got your mortgage and you've got bills to pay, then you're going to be less inclined to act out of your own sovereignty to maintain that security, which in and of itself is a loss of freedom. And so that's where a lot of people, I don't think, they don't understand the very dynamic interplay of the concept of freedom, because especially in Australia here, when you think to negative gearing and how it's actually profitable to be able to buy lots of properties and ride the wave up where the houses double every 7 years, not understanding that without a growing economy to support that, then really it's just created this enormous housing bubble that's been supported by federal legislation. And you can go online and read about it. It's a bit of a problem here in Australia, where houses they just keep going up because people keep believing in this, yet the economy doesn't continue to evolve and grow in a way that will support the continual growth rate of the housing market as well. So are they free? I mean, it's a challenging one. I mean, even those who don't have houses, they're still caught up in this game. They don't even have the freedom to choose. So we'll step away from that one though, because that's another episode.
Let's take it from the bricks and mortar and that which is concrete to a more cosmic context. And when we look at it from the soul level, I don't remember where this might have been in one of our regressions, but how it was a higher self was saying how much energy it takes for the soul to hold the concept of the body, to maintain the limitation of the body, of gravity, of time, like just to hold this human state for the soul. It takes so much energy. So this realm alone is one of limitation.
Yeah, and Dolores Cannon actually, spoke about the soul trying to condense and squeeze into the physical form, and it's very uncomfortable. And if you've ever looked into near-death experience stories, and a lot of them talk to, leaving and then hitting the bliss state, and they don't want to return back to being a human, and they're forced to go back, and then they come back and they're like, oh, this is so awful, and it's so uncomfortable.
It is. It's I've had that first-hand experience. It's heavy down here. It's dense. It's like being, in quicksand, and just things are thick. There's a thickness to this reality. And
would quicksand be the best form, or like maybe like a swamp or
swampy? Yeah, I was thinking more swamp. Yeah, and
it's boggy.
Boggy, yeah. And even that itself, like we have already incarnated into layers of limitation. So for those, to be so free, I mean, is to have no form, no structure, no identity, no. Like there's nothing to attach to. The universe just is.
Well, now you're speaking to the concept of enlightenment itself, because the idea of understanding like who and what we are in the absolute sense is to understand that any sense of identity, any sense of dual perception, I am separate from you, is already a loss of freedom to be everything. And this is really where the path to seeking enlightenment, in my own experience, has just been one it's too big for the human mind to grasp. And that's why these states really can't be held for very long, because to know the absolute truth is, it just carries this enormity and this size that I want to say it's like wearing clothes that are just not even too big for you, but like they're just impossible. They're too big, but they're also too small, and it's very hard to describe. We'll have another episode on that one. I'll need to prepare for that one, of course, but
how does, the concept of freedom, most people think of it as an escape. They're running from something, but really it's a paradox of you are both bound and unbound at the same time.
Which we've been interlacing this entire podcast. How do you relate to it, my love?
It's a hard one to put into words, and it's freedom, as we were talking about beforehand, is more than just choice of the, this is how I want to live my life. There's so much freedom that, going back to even what we're talking about parts, there are parts of ourselves that are not free, that are bound. So freedom,
you're talking like the exiles and
yep. There are parts that we have imprisoned to do as we bid, but is that really, being free? And then this manifests into the external world. So, was thinking about it this morning as I was posting, was that which I thought was freedom really wasn't. It came from the world. It was manufactured from the world. But even at certain cosmic levels, that too is just a construct, which was very, shocking to hear at the first time, because we spend so much time trying to, chase this, but we forget that we are this.
And that's why I think of transcendence or going meta is essentially the same thing. It's collapsing any duality to be able to go up a level, to go further outside. Like when you talk about, you stepped out and realized it was just part of another system. It's the saying that we have games within games.
And we haven't even spoken to, we might not do this just yet, but I guess darker entities that have, certain frequencies that enslave other frequencies and other realms and other dimensions or places within the cosmos that have been taken over and enslaved. To think that freedom is just, I have my house paid off and my car paid off and I can travel when I want and eat what I want. If that is the upper limit of freedom, it is nowhere near what truly embodying freedom actually
no, they're
means.
Playing the sandbox game of the world.
Yes.
And they've mastered that. But it's like, I think back to video games, I just feel like there's such apt analogies here. It's like having completed everything in a specific video game, and it's like, congratulations, you've unlocked every weapon and every upgrade, and now you're God. And there's nothing to do.
So I invite you to, to really sit with this word. It can be meditation. It can be through journaling or quiet reflection, or even a conversation with someone who, you can challenge them and they can challenge you as to what does freedom and how does this play out in your life? How does this play out when you go to the doctor and just ask the doctor to give you a pill for an ailment? Where's freedom in this interaction? Where's freedom in dinner? Where's freedom in the work, the everything?
Where's freedom in the struggle of being limited?
That too. And where's freedom in the body? It's like a few weeks ago, I got a rude awakening that mine's way too tight. So there was no freedom isn't being felt there. And once you start questioning everything, do expect more and more to keep on coming to your awareness as you chronically question everything. So what kind of freedom are you really living? And as Daniel pointed out beforehand, there is a cost to everything. Is your freedom coming at a cost to someone else? Can you give an example of that?
I think back to the people who want to get lots of investment properties and just think, again, like that one's just such a good example in Australia of thinking that I'll just, keep investing and just keep buying more and I'll just be able to retire early and this and that, while failing to understand that you're actually participating in driving the market up and pulling the rug out from people who are still trying to get their foot into the door. And so your own freedom financially in that sense and economically is actually worsening the problem for others who need to start from the bottom up.
I wonder how many people would feel uncomfortable at this point in time, but that is the whole point. Because
I've said it to family and it does not sit well.
No, I can't imagine how many businesses are built around this model alone.
Yeah, not that they're even
in the market
playing that game, but it just goes against the narrative.
So we've wanted to just bring to awareness, there's so many aspects we haven't touched on, but we wanted to give more grounded aspects of this lie of freedom, this construct of freedom that we have been told and sold, which is so far removed from the living pulse of spirit, and more that we're trying to digest this very shallow model of freedom sold to us. It's found on Marketplace, and we didn't even touch too much on the rebel that's like, I'm an anarchist and fuck the world and I'm just going to do what I want when I want.
And even anarchism can really be broken down in ways that's just been so co-opted. Most people don't actually understand its etymology or what the word itself means, and how the media has you thinking that these are the rioters and looters that are, as you said, like fuck the government and fuck the system. There's so much more than that.
And even the freedom of escape. You are free to escape. That's what any good prisoner would want. But really, is that freedom? So freedom has a way of disguising itself as captivity. And this also invites us into more paradox, to get closer to the truth of what does freedom mean. We are both the chained and the infinite, the bound and the unbound as well. But then return the question and the mirror back to yourself. Whose freedom are you living? Was it your version? And what price? And not just you paying for it, but there is a collective cost being borne to the individual or the individualistic needs of freedom. So this, of course, is not an end to the construct, but an opening. And, we have learned that the frequency which brings on death is the same which births something truer. And that is very much what this show is about. So if you love what you are listening to, we would love a review. And do connect with us. I'm the Eleanor Moshe on Instagram.
And I'm the Daniel Darman.
And as we leave another lie to rest, may you leave lighter, not because you are free, but because you have just stopped chasing freedom where it was never real. Until next time.
Because you're too big to be this small.